Welcome to Retirement Ramblings. I'm Scott, and today is day 68 on my countdown to retirement, plus a quick catch up for day 69. So on day 69, I met with an acquaintance of mine, and we had a 4-hour lunch at Longhorn where we talked about finance and investments. So I know a lot of you guys may have investment groups or whatever. So this is my investment group. Anyway, we talked about VTI and BND and how they're the core holdings in a fully diversified U.S. equity and bond portfolio. And then we talked about the 11 sectors of the S&P 500. If you want to go with sector diversity or you want to overweight one sector more than another. And so, I talked through the various sector Spyder ETFs. And then we talked about how to use certain ETFs for themes like BUG if you wanted to do cybersecurity. And then we talked about the metals, so gold and silver. So the GLD if you just want to have a straight gold play, or SLV if you want silver, and how they're a theoretical store of value, but one that I personally don't buy into, especially if you hold the physical assets, like do silver stacking or own numismatic gold coins, things like that. I have personal experience with both of those things, and I can say unequivocally in my lifetime they have not appreciated in value even if you held them for 50 years. So in nominal terms they've appreciated, in inflation adjusted terms not so much. So anyway, not something that I'm looking to do moving forward. Things that I already own, I own, and so they're there, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm losing money in those particular things, but I'm unwilling to sell them at the prices that they're currently worth. And then we talked the difference between market-weighted ETFs and equal-weighted ETFs. So like, let's say SPY for the market weight versus RSP for the equal weight and the various differences. Anyway, it was a really enjoyable conversation and lunch, and then came home from that. And even though I had just come home from a 4-hour lunch, the actual lunch portion was like in the first 30 minutes. So by the time I got home, my wife was like, "What do you want to do about dinner?" And she wanted to go out to Chili, so that's what we ended up doing. And I ended up getting Cajun shrimp pasta. And then today, day 68, ended up starting to prepare to go back onto the carnivore diet. And so I have been saving a bunch of bones from a prime rib roast that I made a while back. And so I took those bones, I roasted them in the oven for about 45 minutes on 400 degrees. Then I cut the bones up with or when I say cut the bones, I mean I cut between the bones with a cleaver. And then I ended up taking them and putting them into a small crock pot, putting in distilled water till it was pretty much to the top, and then adding in some apple cider vinegar to acidify the water, and then turning it on low, and it'll run for about 24 hours. And that should pretty much clean the bone marrow out, should clean the any of the meat that's on the bones, and just make sure that it gets all the collagen and everything. Then I'll strain it tomorrow and can it into quart jars or whatever, and then that'll become bone broth as I go back onto the program. And then I called DirecTV today because 9 days ago I went onto the DirecTV website, I did my cancellation, I took screen captures of the screens where DirecTV confirmed to me that I was canceled. And they said I would get 3 business days, I would end up getting an email from them or a pop-up on my home screen saying it was canceled, neither of which happened. So when I called today, talked to the guy, explained what happened, he went into the system and said, "Oh no, you're not showing as canceled." So he did the formal cancellation. Then he sent me an email confirming the cancellation. I also went in, made sure that I removed all of my devices, and then I contacted my credit card company to make sure that they do not accept any charges from this point forward from DirecTV, since I've clearly gone through multiple cancellations with them and my renewal would be on the 31st of October, and I want to make sure that absolutely doesn't happen. So that was just kind of a precautionary measure. Then I did my weekly financial review since it's Saturday, and we ended up being up for the week 1.16%. So we're now up 13.29% for the year across our blended portfolio. And then I said, well, just because I wanted to know, how's that stack up against the S&P 500, which most people use as a benchmark, and using SPY as a proxy for the S&P 500, that's up 15.53% for the year. And so I feel pretty good about it, given that I'm basically looking at taking a 70-30 portfolio in my IRAs and 80-20 in my Roth, blending the two of them together. And even with the bonds and everything, it's reducing the volatility, but it's not reducing my overall performance by that much. I mean, it's still whatever, a little over 2%, but I felt pretty good that 13.29% was a good return given that situation. And then I was able to start a small position in Capital One Financials, the symbol COF, on a pullback following earnings. And again, I was taking some of the gains I had got out of my Oracle stock that I sold and moving them into the financials because, as I previously shared, with the Fed, with my expectation that the Fed is going to start its full-blown rate cutting cycle this month, and I expect them to cut in October, in December, in January. So based on that, and assuming that there'll be at least 75 basis points of cuts, I'm expecting the financials to do very well going into 2026. And I wanted to position myself in that group in advance of that cutting cycle. So I did. And then the stock market as a whole ended the week up. The Dow Jones Industrial Average finished up 2.2% at 47,207, which was the very first close above 47,000 ever. So that's awesome. The S&P 500 was up 1.9% at 6792. The Nasdaq was up 2.3% at 23,205. And the Russell 2000 was up 2.5% to 2,513. 9 of the 11 S&P 500 sectors were up for the week, with the winner being information technology up 2.8%, and the laggard for the week being consumer staples, which was down 0.6%. And then WTI crude was up 6.9% for the week to $61.50 a barrel. Gold was down for the week 1.8% to 4,137.8 per troy ounce. Natural gas was up 9.8% to $3.30.4. International markets ended the week up. The winners for the week were Japan and Hong Kong. Both were up 3.6%. Japan being up to 49,300, and Hong Kong ended at 26,160. And India was the laggard for the week, up only 0.3% to 84,212. And then after doing the financial review, I ended up deciding to research batteries for my 2007 Toyota Tundra. So the last time I went in and had my oil changed, they also checked my ABS sensor and told me that it had gotten a low voltage indicator, which is what caused the light to come on. So they just reset it. Nothing else was wrong. But the last 2 times I was in, they told me that my battery was getting weak and I really needed to replace it. So I decided, now that we're in October, that I would bite the bullet and do it now, because I definitely want to I didn't want to get into winter when I need the cold cranking amps to start the truck and not be able to start it. So shopped around, went to Grok and said, what do you recommend? And it came back and said the Die Hard Platinum AGM. But I ended up going with the Interstate Battery 24F AGM at Costco, which I was able to get for $179.99 plus tax. So I called my local Costco to see if they had that particular battery in stock, which they did. So then I cleaned my current battery, which I had to put baking soda all over it and then pour warm water over it to get the crud off, so that I could disassemble what was there, take it out of the truck, I put it into a storage container so that I wouldn't mess up my car. Then moved it into the trunk of the car. And then my wife and I went over to Costco. I got the new battery, came back, installed the battery in the truck, kind of in reverse order. And by the way, the reason I had to take the old battery with me is there's a $15 core charge, battery core charge, if you don't turn in the old battery for them to properly dispose of the battery. So that's why I did that, which was good because in my neighborhood, there isn't a way for me to dispose of the battery through our normal trash pickup. So I definitely wanted to take it to Costco. Then, like I said, installed it, made sure everything was right. And then I had to fired up the truck, reset. It erases your odometer, it erases your radio stations, it erases your clock, all that stuff. So I had to reset all that stuff back up. And then I took the truck for a drive for about 2 or 3 miles just to make sure everything was working as I expected. And I could also measure that the battery was in fact being charged by the alternator. Came back, everything was good to go. So pretty much that was my day. So if you have any questions or any comments, please leave them in the comment section down below or drop me an email at myretirementramblings@gmail.com. Otherwise, I look forward to talking with you tomorrow. So have a great evening and take care.